Hello and welcome to another trip report, randomly from Rotterdam Central Station. It's not about this station at all. This video is about the local train between Arnhem Centraal Railway Station in the Netherlands to Düsseldorf in Germany. It stops in some places along the way, some bigger and some smaller towns. I recorded this over the last year or so, but I actually haven't covered this train yet in my video, so this is why I'm doing it right now. I start off by showing the railway station of Arnhem Central, then I show the train. I also show you some views from the train, and in between I also show you, very briefly though, the railway station of Emmerich, what is the first station in Germany. For now, I hope you'll like this video. If you do so, give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more, just hit the subscribe button. But for now, let's roll the intro. Within the city of Arnhem in the Netherlands, you find quite a lot of interesting places, museums and parks. For example, the Dutch Open Air Museum, where you can learn a lot about the Dutch history. This is not only about general history, but there's also a big part dedicated to railways, and there's even an own tramway. Even though within the city of Arnhem you won't find trams, you will find trolleybuses, and this is the only place in the Netherlands where you will find this. Actually, I really like this. These are electric buses that will use the overhead wires, and this is way more environmental friendly than battery powered buses. Electric buses based on batteries can be a good solution. However, they do need quite a lot of electricity in one go if they need to charge, so they ask a lot from the grid. And battery waste is also a serious issue. There are several bus stops around the railway station, and this might be a little bit confusing. I'll get back to this in a bit. The railway station is not far away from the city center, and right at the front you will find locals. Well, you can find them pretty much anywhere in the city. One reason why I really like to highlight this railway station is because of the architecture. If you're not interested in the railway station, you can skip to the next part of the video. I do have chapters on YouTube. You will find many different layers, and even below the railway station and the bus stop, you find a really big parking grass for cars. Another parking grass for bikes, but bikes do obviously need way less space than cars, is integrated within the railway station building, and you can basically cycle directly into the railway station building. I'll get back to all of this in a bit. Around the station there are tons of shops and also travel related services, like for example an exchange office. Around the railway station building there are several water taps you can use to reduce plastic waste and just refill your bottle with tap water. Tap water in the Netherlands is a very good quality, so no need to buy plastic bottles. The main railway station building, where you find the concourse, does exist of several layers. These layers run really smooth into each other, but for the highest layer, well, you obviously go here. You can take an escalator or walk here. If you go up here and go out at the side, you have a great view on the railway tracks, by the way. Something else you'll find here is a pickup and drop-off zone for railway passengers by cars, and there are some office buildings integrated within this building. This is really well done, and this makes it really convenient to work here. You won't only find good public transportation connections, but as I will show you in a bit, there's also a big parking grass for those who arrive here by car. What makes this station unique is the architecture. I won't go too deep in this. However, for the entire metal construction in the concourse, techniques that are being used in the shipping industry were applied, and this is the first time these techniques have been applied into a regular building. And I mean, just look at this, I really like this. This station does exist of several layers, and like I mentioned before, you don't always really notice it if you move from one layer to another layer, because this is all very smooth. This can be handy, but in some situations it might be a little bit confusing, especially for the bus stops. If you move a little bit down, there are some fast food places, and here you find the entrance to the bus stops at the front of the railway station. Here you will only find trolleybuses, but if you take a bus from here, please do really pay attention from what bus platform your bus will depart, because you find them spread out at 2 spots at the front of the railway station, and there are even some bus stops at the back of the railway station. Something I really like, and you find this at more bigger Dutch railway stations, is the piano. Some great things can happen around these, like spontaneous performances. A little bit more at the side, there's a big parking grass for cars. Normally I don't really care a lot about parking grasses, but architectural wise this is actually quite cool. You can see different layers, and there are even some points where cars do cross other layers. If you're traveling with an electric vehicle, you find lots of charging points over here as well, and I also noticed the presence of a car rental company. However, statistically, most railway passengers do arrive by bike in the Netherlands. I mean, the Netherlands is a true cycling country. And there's also a big parking grass for those who arrive here by bike. Right at the entrance, it might be a bit busy. However, there are special screens that will host information about how many places there are available. And if you move more to the back of the grass, so basically if you move down, there is in general way more space. But most likely if you watch this video you're not from Arnhem, so you want to get around from here. No need to worry about that, because you also find the bike sharing program OV-fiets of the Dutch state-owned railway company NS. A repair shop is located right at the front of this parking grass for bikes, and from this grass you can go to the railway station concourse straight away. It's really good integrated in each other. At the concourse there are of course lots of shops and also some vending machines for train tickets. However, before I show you that, at the side in the concourse you'll find most bus stops. This is actually inside and is a little bit more comfortable, especially when bad weather happens. Both trolleybuses that are mainly city buses and regional buses do arrive and depart from here. Information about departing buses is given very well throughout the station with digital screens, and at some spots you also find old-fashioned timetables. Even though public transportation from and to here is good, in some situations taxis might be a little bit more handy. At the side, a little bit hidden, there is a taxi stand. This is at the ground level, so it's not at the pick-up and drop-off zone for railway passengers by car. It's next to the bus stop actually. Near the exit for the taxis, there's also a locker room where you can drop your luggage if you want to go into the city from here. And toilets are located right next to the locker room. If you're using the toilets, you get a voucher you can use for discounts if you buy something in the railway station. A ticket and information point for local, national and international trains is located at the concourse of this station. You also find several vending machines, mainly for the national trains, and there's one vending machine you can use for the trains to Germany. As far as I know, these vending machines can only be used for tickets for the local trains to Germany. There's no first class lounge, however there are several spots where you can just have a sit and a drink over here. If you move towards the platforms, there are clear departure screens that will host information about departing trains. But something you need to keep in mind if you're departing from here, you will find different railway companies. So if you're traveling with the use of a smart card, make sure you will touch in at the right railway company. If you made a mistake or you changed between different companies, at the platform you can swap between the different companies or even touch out if you're traveling from here with an international ticket. If you have an international ticket, you can most likely use the QR code on the ticket to open the gates. And if you have some issues by opening the gates, there's also an information button you can press at the side. Right after the gates there are some more shops, like for example a convenience store, a drugstore, a bookshop and a snack bar. This railway station is not only serving a rather big city, it's also quite an important railway junction and especially for international railway passengers. Screens before you enter the platform will obviously give information about the first upcoming departure from that specific platform. More passenger service information is located at the side. For example, these departure states and line maps. There's also a map of the station located over here. In the underground passage, you also find some spots where you can wait. However, you also find this at the platform. Both inside, what is perfect for in the wintertime, and outside. Something else you find at most platforms is a kiosk, a very small convenience store. If you move over the platform to a little bit more the west side of the railway station, you find an overground passage, and this will go to the back of the railway station. The Netherlands is in general a really flat country. However, Arnhem is a bit hilly, so this is at a higher level as the front of the railway station. At this spot there's another tap for drinking water, and there are some more bus stops. Well, I think I gave you a very good impression of this railway station, and if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. About ticket fares, quite a lot of things are changing at this moment, so I'm not gonna mention it all. However, you can travel with your Dutch public transport smart card or contactless payment card with these trains until the railway station of Emmerich, what is the second station in Germany for the local trains. Apart from the local trains between Arnhem and Düsseldorf, you also find ICE trains. These are the intercity express trains and are the high-speed trains of the German state-owned railway company DB. These trains do not run on high-speed tracks between Arnhem and Düsseldorf. However, they are slightly faster, mainly because they have less stops on this section of the route. If you have a promotional ticket for the ICE trains, you're obligated to take that route, at least for the long-distance trains that has been written on your ticket. Apart from that, you also find night jet trains, and there's one night jet train that's combined with an intercity train. For the intercity part of that train, the same rules apply as the intercity express trains. And then the night jet trains, well, for those trains a reservation is always included in your ticket. You cannot hop on these trains. However, this video is about the local trains, and that are these trains you see right here. These trains do run approximately every hour between Arnhem and Düsseldorf, and I'll explain you a little bit more about this later on in the video. The local trains between Arnhem and Düsseldorf are true commuter trains. What basically means you cannot reserve a seat. However, because these trains do start in Arnhem, if you're entering the train over here and it's busy, you most likely do have a seat, especially if you go to the train straight away. Before I'll show you the interior, let's take a closer look at the exterior of these trains. The numbers 1 and 2 at the side do indicate where you find the first and the second class, and some basic icons do indicate what facilities can be found where. These are simple commuter trains, but of course you also find some extra facilities, like for example a spot where you can park bikes, an accessible area, etc. Obviously you won't find a dining car and you cannot make reservations for these trains. When this local line was introduced, it was being operated by Abellio. However, due to the pandemic, things went not that good as planned with that railway company. Eventually, in February 2022, Vias took over this line. Since December 2016, there are local trains running again between Germany and the Netherlands on this route. This is technically quite a difficult route, but I'll explain a little bit more about this later on. For now, let's take a closer look at the interior of these trains, and I will start off with the first class. The capacity of seats in the first class is really low. You will only find 24 seats, 12 in the back and 12 at the front. And this is the layout of the first class. There are some bay seats, and you'll find some seats in an airline style or long distance bus composition. The airline style or long distance style bus seats do have a fold-out table and a magazine rack. However, the amount for luggage in the first class is really minimal. You won't find overhead luggage racks, for example, and there are no dedicated luggage zones. At the moment you find the bay seats, so seats facing each other. There's a small table at the side, both in first and second class. Within this table you find a garbage bin and also power plugs. This is, by the way, the layout of the second class. It feels to me the same as first class, but I guess the first class might have slightly more leg room, but that's basically it. Basic LED screens at the ceiling will host very simple route information, but it's good enough. You find some folding seats near most entrance doors you can use for extra space for luggage or if you're traveling with bikes. And priority seats have been marked as well. You find them mainly near the entrance doors. Even though the toilet here was broken, I traveled several times with these trains, so I can show you the regular toilet as well. Well, it's just a toilet, it's not that special, but this is how the normal toilets look like within these trains. You also find a bigger accessible toilet that can also be used as a diaper changing facility for babies, but I will show you this in a bit. There is a mix of bay seats, so seats facing each other, and airline style seats. And as you already know from my previous videos if you're a regular viewer, I really prefer the airline or long distance bus seat compositions. And this is how they are. You find a fold out table in the seat in front and there's a magazine rack. Although I also noticed that many magazine racks were missing. I guess that's not a big deal because I don't know a lot of people who are using this anyway. Apart from the LED screens at the ceiling of these trains that will host route information, there are bigger screens near most entrance doors that will also host route information. And for now, it's time to review the bigger toilet that is also accessible and can be used as a diaper changing facility for babies. It was clean here, although the water drain didn't work that well. The water stayed more or less in the sink and went out really slow, but at least it didn't stay there. Well, as you can see, you can turn this into a diaper changing facility and you have some support bars next to the toilet, so for those who need this, you can also use this as an accessible toilet. Let it be no surprise that the accessible area of the train is right next to this toilet. Line maps for local public transportation can be found at several spots above the windows, basically kind of at the ceiling. And that's basically it. I mean, these are good commuter trains, but they're not that special. I already mentioned it before, but you can travel with the OV chip card, what is a smart card for public transportation within the Netherlands, for this train until the railway station of Emmerich. If you do this, check in at Bring and Arriva. These are the red poles. I'll get back to you in a bit. For now, I'll show you some views from the train between Arnhem Centraal Railway Station and Emmerich. What is the second station in Germany, and until there you can travel with your Dutch OV chip card. Between the railway station of Arnhem Central and Emmerich, the train will go through two voltage locks. One right before the German border, where the regular train line for the Netherlands will end up in a freight train line, and a little bit later this will change into the German voltage. Most trains that do cross the border here are freight trains, and they will obviously come from the freight train line from the harbor of Rotterdam that will go into Germany. Therefore, from a technical point of view, this is a rather interesting section for this railway line. Because the passenger mainline trains will go on the cargo railway line and that will end up in a German railway line. There are quite a lot of upgrades going on at this moment around this area. And apart from that, cargo trains are just heavier, so the railway tracks need more maintenance at this section of the route. However, if you want to see if there are construction works, it's only visible about 2 weeks prior departure. But there's a trick how you can see this earlier on. If you look up the timetable for the long distance trains, so I'm talking about the ICE trains and also the night jet trains, And you can see that those trains are being diverted via Den Bosch and Mönchengladbach. Then the local trains will not run, and there might probably a rail replacement bus on the part of the route. Anyway, it's time to show you a little bit more of Emmerich railway station. You'll find many tracks here, but you only find 4 tracks. There are also directly to a platform. At the moment you want to touch in or out with your Dutch public transport smart card or contactless payment card, there's only one point where you can do this, and this is right at the front. So if you want to just go out of the train and touch in or out, this might be a little bit of a challenge, and especially if the train will be put into another platform. Apart from the trains, you also find buses to the Netherlands, to Nijmegen, what is a little bit south from Arnhem. At the front there's a big parking spot for cars, and you can also park your bike over here. This building, what's a little bit more at the front that seemed to know have better days, is a waiting area inside, and you also find a small convenience store. That's it. For now, I'll show you some views from the train between Emmerich and Düsseldorf.
I hope you liked this video. If you did so, give me a thumbs up, and like I already said in the introduction, if you want to see more trip reports, just hit the subscribe button. See you on my next video.
Did you know that in the description of this video on YouTube you'll find a link to a map, and on this map you can find all trip reports. Of course you can also find them on this channel, and if you don't want to miss anything, just hit the subscribe button. Once again, thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.